Well, to get a better sense on how Indonesia's economy is doing or to measure the health of Indonesia's economy, we are joined by Chief Economist of Bank Permata, Josua Pardede. Hi, Pak Joshua. Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon.
Thanks for having me, Krishna. Thank you.
All right, and as we saw just there, according to latest data, consumer confidence index still at a level of optimistic in November. Tell us, what does this say about the state of Indonesia's economy at the moment?
I think, as you mentioned, that inflation, as per November last month, actually eased slightly from the previous months, and then we are expecting that the year-end inflation to be lower than our initial expectation. We initially expected the inflation will be more than 6%, but take into account that the November year-to-date inflation data still remain below 5%. We are expecting that the year-end inflation to be around 5 to 6%. And then, in addition to that, I think we're looking at the retail sales growth. Yeah, the retail sales index also recorded the positive note, despite after the implementation of fuel price hike in last September. And then I think consumers still believe that although next year global economy tends to be slowing down, but Indonesia national economic perspective, I think still positive. I think Indonesia economy will be driven majorly by the domestic consumption, and then we are still believe that the private consumption next year will still grow positively.
Right, as you mentioned there, in Indonesia's economy, the GDP, one of the biggest contributions, of course, consumer demand. So you're saying consumer demand will still stay healthy and still drive Indonesia's economy, and you're saying also the consumers are not really affected by this outlook of possible recession next year, Joshua.
Yeah, I think this is also the inflation expectation. Yeah, that has been tackled by the Bank Indonesia. We are noticing that Bank Indonesia already raised policy rates from previously 3.5% to currently around 5.25%. We are expecting that the recent interest rate hikes will also impact to tackle the inflation expectation. Yeah, so basically, because of the interest rate hikes, we're expecting that inflation will be well managed, and this will lead to the expectation of remain stable of the private consumption. And we are also noticing that the government just we are not about the provincial wages next year also roughly around in average will be increasing around 10%. Yeah, so this is, I think, the good news to the consumers, that the expectation of the private consumption will grow positively next year.
All right, inflation is still manageable and wages are also up. Two key factors there. I want to also talk to you about the rupiah. Now, last Friday, around the same time when I was also talking to an economist, the rupiah was around 15,436 per US dollar. And this week, we saw the rupiah weaken to around 15,600. Today, it's nearing that figure, even though it rose 0.2% today. Do you see the rupiah continuing to weaken until the Fed's decision next week, by Joshua?
Yeah, I think market currently is expecting that the Fed will likely raise by 50 basis points from the last four meetings that the Fed raised by 75 basis points. Taking into account that expectation of inflation as per November to be released next week also is expected to be lower than the previous figures. And then taking into account that Indonesia trade balance still recorded surplus in 30 months consecutively, we are expecting that the external balance still in the good shape. Yeah, meaning that the foreign reserves, I think, should be in the right position. Yeah, so I think this also could be the buffer for foreign investors to remain investing in Indonesia. And for your question, whether the rupiah will weaken further, I think we are expecting by the end of this year, rupiah will stabilize within range of 15,500 until 15,600, because we are expecting that although the expectation of the Fed rate hikes in the next year will be the pace will be slower than this year, but we are still looking at another downside risk from global, particularly for a global slowdown that will imply the decreasing performance, export performance in emerging countries, including Indonesia. So we need to be cautious further in the next year, because the pressure on rupiah, although will be easing, but the rupiah still is expected to be stabilized beyond 15,000 level.
All right. Now, besides the Fed, as you were talking about there, another external factor at play has been China's economy and its policies. But now, with the easing of COVID restrictions, do you see this having a positive impact on Indonesia's economy? As, of course, China is Indonesia's biggest trade partner.
Yes, of course. We believe that China is the biggest major trading partner for Indonesia, because about 15 to 20% our exports is driven by China's demand. So when the China government started to relax their restriction policy, leading to the expectation of the improving China economic growth next year. So we still believe that in terms of volume, we still believe that the China imports from Indonesia still relatively solid, but we're expecting that although the volume from China still remain solid, but from price perspective, we are expecting that commodity prices, both CPO and also coal, will likely normalize next year. Maybe sometime in the second half of next year, the commodity prices will gradually further until end of next year.
All right, some good news, still some good news on that front. We're going to take a short break, but we're going to continue our dialogue with Josua Pardede after this very short break. Stay tuned on Jakarta, Movers and Shakers.